Good morning, everybody, from beautiful, sunny Chicago. Although I could fool you into saying that I'm at some Florida beach town with this background. Anyways, we are less than 5 weeks out from Chicago. And if you're running Chicago with me, at this point, you should probably be in some shape, because there's not much more time to build fitness from here. Probably another 3.5 weeks, I'd say. I don't know, people have all different opinions about when you can, when that time window shuts off to continue to get fitter. I've always said it's probably about a week before, 7 or 10 days, but who knows? It's probably different for different people. But 34 days I just worked out. It's Monday morning. Another 100-mile week in the bank, 101 miles. Solid week. But in this video, I'm going to briefly take you over what the week looked like. But I'm going to speak about a topic that I put on my Instagram story. Well, quite a lot of people actually commenting on these videos have pointed something out that is true, and it's that I look a bit leaner than normal. Some people said fitter, I just say leaner. And when I put up an Instagram story 4 or 5 days ago, mentioning that I'd lost 8 pounds, which is about 3.5 kilos in the last 2 months. I had about probably close to 100, I think, maybe somewhere between 80 and 100 people respond to it, asking questions and being interested and curious about it. And so in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how that's happened and why I've done that. But I want to preface and start by saying I do not recommend this to anybody. It's really important to underscore that. What I'm about to say in this next section when I film back at home, it's not that I recommend, it's just what I have done, and that might benefit some. It's all about race weight. It's all about power to weight ratio. And yeah, I just want to be really clear that I am not recommending people get lighter to race faster. I personally experienced that, but I know, and I'm very aware, although I haven't experienced the downside of being too light and, going pear shapes, but I know a lot of people that have, and I know that there is a risk and a danger in doing that. So that is, there's obviously the red S that's a concern. There's psychological disorders that you can fall into without even it's very common. And I want to understand, if you have been dealing with anything like that before, maybe don't watch this episode, because I don't want it to trigger anybody. But I had a lot of people interested in how I had done that through marathon training, because there's a lot of different opinions and advice around this. A lot of dietitians and nutritionists and even coaches say never try and lose weight in a marathon block. But I have actually tried to lose weight in the marathon block, and so far I think it's worked. And I think that sort of reflected well in the half marathon I ran over the weekend, where I ran, I didn't say in the last video that I was going to race a half, and that's because at that point in time I didn't have it planned. But I decided on Monday or Tuesday to race a half on Saturday with a day taper. And I ran well. I ran just off my personal best, just by 14 seconds, but I ran most of it alone on a course that wasn't super fast. Felt very heavy and fatigued during it, but still ran 67:02, which indicates to me that I'm in personal best shape for the half for sure, because my best is only 66:48. But the point is, I think everything that I've been doing in training and with the diet so far has been really working for me. And I want to really try and underscore for the 10th time that if you're triggered by anything to do with weight, or you've had sort of, red S or disorders or anything like that, I think that this next 10 minutes or so it just won't benefit you in any way. But if it is something that you think would benefit you, to get a little bit lighter and to try and do it during a marathon block, maybe it might help you. But to be very clear, I'm not recommending it at all. This is just something that I've experimented with and that I've tried, because I've noticed that when I get a little bit lighter, down to closer to 70 kilos, 69, 70 kilos, I race faster and I don't lose any power. And so right now I'm pretty close to that weight. I'm about 71 or 70.8, which is 156 pounds. And yeah, I'm going to tell you exactly how I've gone from 164 pounds or 74 kilos down to 70 kilos and 156 pounds. And I think I'll probably get closer to 69 kilos and 153 pounds by the race. So if it's something that you find it might help for you, then great. Hopefully it's beneficial. But once again, this is not anything I recommend. It's just something I'm doing. Just a quick thanks to one of our sponsors, and we're right back to the video. This episode is sponsored by Hover Air X1, and I've seen this drone around used by a few friends and a few people at events like Western States Endurance Run, and I was really stoked when they reached out to me to test it out because this little device is very convenient. It's very affordable, it's tiny, you can basically fold it up to fit in your pocket, and it's super light, and there's so many awesome functions on this drone that enable you to take really high quality footage very easily. So this mode right here is orbit mode. You basically just put it in the air and select orbit mode and it will just circle around you and take video footage. There's the bird's eye view as well, which you can have a lot of fun with. The zoom out mode, which is great, especially when you've got the Chicago skyline in the background. But the most convenient one for runners would be the follow me mode that you can see right now. So you literally just put the drone into the air, you select follow me, and it just follows you. And on this particular afternoon, it was pretty windy, and I was really pretty surprised at how steady the footage ended up being. And as I said before, it shoots in 1080p, which is pretty high quality for such a tiny device, and I am having a lot of fun with this little drone on my runs. Sometimes when it's really nice weather, I'll take it out with me, and I'm literally just carrying it in my hand, and all you need is your phone and the drone itself, and yeah, I highly recommend checking it out yourself. You can find the link in the description to take you straight to Hover Air's website. Okay, now that we've got all those warnings and disclosures out of the way, I'll share how I personally have lost around 8 pounds in the last 2 months, or 3.5 kilos while training for the marathon. Before I do, I guess I want to talk about why I've done this and why someone might want to do this. I personally noticed over the last 3 years, as I've been pretty stagnant on around 220 to 224 for the marathon, that I have trained many different ways. I have noticed that my VO2 max and threshold paces have remained pretty stable and pretty stagnant, regardless of how hard I train or how much I train. And so I started to think, well, what else can I possibly do to get a little bit faster? And one thing that I noticed was that back in 2021, when I ran my personal best for the marathon in Indianapolis, I naturally got down to around about 155 pounds, which is pretty close to what I'm at now, more or less, or around 70 kilos. At the time, I actually didn't try to get down to that weight, but I just did somehow. And even to this day, to be honest, I have no idea how I managed to get down that light, because about 6 months earlier, I was about 76 kilos, which is about 100 and almost 170 pounds. So I somehow shed off almost 15 pounds or 6 kilos in about 6 months, and I didn't even try. And so I started to think to myself, well, maybe I should try and get down to that, because at the end of the day, I did race very well at that weight. I ran 220, I was on pace to run 218 until very late in the race, until I started to cramp up a little bit. And it's probably the best shape I've ever been in or equal to, and I did that off relatively low volume, around 62 miles a week, or about 100 to 110 kilometers a week. So I just thought, why not try and experiment? I was very aware, and still am very aware, of the risks involved and the mistakes that you can make. But I think ultimately what you have to do is you have to be very honest with yourself and check in with yourself every single day around how your training's going and how you're generally feeling. And that's something that sometimes you might need a second opinion on, either a coach or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or someone that you live with, to just try and make sure, are you training well? Are you hitting your workouts well? And if you're not, then maybe you have to cut back on the plan that I'm about to talk about. So let's get into the plan and how I've managed to do this. So losing weight, or losing fat ideally, is 99% around calories in, calories out. There's 1% you could say for insulin spiking, but we won't go into that. But it's pretty much all about being in a calorie deficit. Now, you don't have to be in a calorie deficit all the time, but if you're in a calorie deficit for most of the time, and in the times outside of that, you're at pretty much a, even calories in, calories out, or maybe slight surplus. Over time, you will lose fat and lose weight. So I quickly realized that my baseline in terms of calorie burn per day does vary quite a bit depending on what day it is and what workout's on, but it's around about 3,000 to 3,500 calories. For someone of my size, height, and age, my baseline's around 2,000. That's assuming I'm not training, about 2,200. But because I'm training for around about an hour to 2 hours a day, usually closer to 2 hours, that's about an additional, about just over 1,000 calories, normally closer to probably 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day. But of course, that depends on the day and the workout. And so I thought, I must be trying to be under that amount of calories most days. But the exception that I make, and I think the way that I've been able to do this, at least to this point, and I hope this video ages well, relatively successfully, is
When I'm on days where there's low intensity only, and there's maybe 3 days in a row of low intensity running, just easy running, on those days I stick to these rules. On the days of hard workouts, or when you get very close to hard workouts, so for example, tomorrow morning I have a hard workout, it's Tuesday afternoon right now, lunchtime, I will completely abandon the calorie in, calorie out rule, and I will load up on carbohydrates. Okay, so to structure this in the right way, I'm trying to always be below 3,000 calories a day until I'm getting into hard workouts. I did a lot of research about this, and I noticed that a lot of foods that are quite filling are quite low on calories, and vice versa. And the foods that are unfilling and high in calories tend to be the processed foods. So, candy, chocolate, pretty unhealthy food like burgers and fries and fast food. Those foods tend to be quite unfilling, but also quite high in calories. So you can very easily have 3,500, 4,000 calories a day and still feel kind of not very full. Whereas if you focus on foods like lean meat, so that is chicken, beef, turkey, vegetables, and fruit, these foods are quite satiating, they're quite filling, but they're also relatively low in calories in terms of like per 100 grams. And so I've focused solely on really eating those foods every day that I'm not near a hard workout. So very high protein, very high fiber. I wouldn't say it's very high fat, but I would say it's pretty low carb. The carbohydrates are coming from fruit and vegetables really alone. Of course, most meats have pretty much no carbohydrates. And I would say on the days that I'm not doing a hard workout, or when I'm very close to a hard workout, I'm going pretty low carb. I would guess that my carbohydrate intake on most days of the week, 5 days of the week, would be about 200 grams of carbs a day. That's pretty low, but I noticed that in my own body, in my own system, that I can do easy running at 7-minute mile pace or 420 per kilometer or slower, which is what most of my easy runs are at. If I'm very low on carbohydrates, I feel pretty normal when I'm running on easy days. I don't feel like I need a lot of carbohydrates. I feel like I can run pretty well off fats, and I know protein isn't the best fuel for energy, but I can do easily 18 miles in a day in 2 runs usually, or close to 30K on very low carbs, and I feel a little bit tired, but that is literally the time or the days where the weight is coming off. It might not be the same for everyone, and that's why it's really important to not just take this advice and run with it and do it yourself. You have to really maybe even check in with a nutritionist or really think about this yourself and sort of customize how you'll do this. But on those days, they're the days that I'm really losing weight. I'm staying to below 3,000 calories a day. I'm not being really hyper strict with counting those, but I'm having 3 meals a day, and I know those 3 meals are always pretty close to 600 to 800 calories. I'm cooking at home pretty much every single meal. I'm not really eating out at all at the moment. And all of these meals involve either chicken, turkey, or beef, and vegetables, and sometimes a little bit of fruit as well. And on top of those 3 meals in the day, I'm also having 2 small snacks. It's typically a smoothie, which is pretty low calorie. It's just berries, a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of chocolate protein powder. That's normally in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I'll typically have a little bit of cottage cheese and also some berries as well. And cottage cheese and berries are very low in calories, sort of compared to how much they actually weigh and how filling those meals are. So I'll have 3 meals in a day, 2 snacks, and those meals will total between 2,500 and 3,000 calories, but I'm not, once again, being super strict with the amount of calories. I'm sort of roughly working it out and making sure I'm below 3,000. The key is though, and I think the reason why I've been able to get to this point and not have any problems, is that right now it's lunchtime on Tuesday afternoon, and on Wednesday morning I have a hard workout. From now until the hard workout, I will basically try to pack in as many carbohydrates as I possibly can through rice and pasta. Why rice and pasta? I personally find those two very easy to stomach. They're also not super high calorie, especially rice, but I really feel great off rice and pasta training. And so this afternoon, this evening, and tomorrow morning, I'll have a lot of carbohydrates. And so basically I'll go from having 200 grams of carbohydrates in a 24-hour period to pretty close to like maybe 700 or 800 grams twice a week. On Tuesday afternoon through to Wednesday morning, and then on Saturday afternoon through to Sunday morning. Sunday morning being the long run. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty much all I've done. I'm abandoning all calorie rules and abandoning all, avoiding carbs, and when I'm very close to the hard workouts. And then on the easy days, I'm going very high protein and really trying to stick to those unprocessed foods like lean meat and vegetables. A couple of little hacks that I'm using to stay satiated and not feeling hungry. The first one is Ketone IQ. Honestly, obviously they are, I've actually got one of their tops on. They're obviously a sponsor of this video and they sponsor Sweat Elite. But one of the benefits to Ketone IQ is they do have an element of appetite control. And if I feel a little bit hungry in the afternoon and I know I shouldn't eat, if I have one of these, it absolutely helps the craving for sugar or anything like that. I find that sometimes I will question in my own mind, am I actually hungry, or do I just have this habit of eating it around this time? And oftentimes I'm not hungry. I just have the habit of eating at that time. And this is a perfect way to take in only 70 calories, I believe is in one of these. And yeah, correct. No carbohydrates, obviously, and to get by a few more hours. And I've noticed that when I have these, my hunger disappears for a few hours. That's one. The second one is a pretty random one, but I find drinking flavored soda water very beneficial for killing cravings for some strange reasons. Sometimes it's almost like we just need a dopamine hit. I feel like a lot of people overeat just to satisfy their dopamine in their brain. I find that a really good flavor of soda water almost ticks that box for me. So I have so many of these per day. I usually have 6 to 10 per day. I don't necessarily do it for the weight loss. I do it anyway. I have these all year. Sometimes I switch up the flavor. This is a grapefruit one that I really like from Whole Foods. But I find that really beneficial. And people that I've told about this idea of having a lot of flavored soda water through the day, they generally feel like it sort of nicks some of their cravings in the bud and they don't feel so hungry through the day. So that's another one. The third one is going on short walks. Sometimes I feel a little bit hungry, just in the habit of eating, and instead of going to the fridge and grabbing something small to eat, I will go for a 10-minute walk and realize as I'm walking that I'm really not that hungry. I'm just bored. I'm in the habit of eating it around this time, and that has completely changed the way I snack as well. So those hacks have really helped me. There's actually one more that I've only recently discovered. It was through a Tim Ferriss video on YouTube. Having protein first thing in the morning upon waking up. I didn't think this would do anything. I didn't really understand why, and I still honestly to this point don't fully understand why. But when I wake up now, first thing in the morning, I go to the fridge, grab a little bit of chicken from a barbecue chicken that I buy from either Whole Foods or Aldi every 3 or 4 days. And I heat a little bit up, about 150, 200 grams, and have it first thing in the morning. And for some reason, this also really helps with cravings through the day so that you don't overeat. So I've been doing that over the last couple of weeks, and I find that it's very beneficial for just not being so hungry through the day. So there's 4 hacks. The protein first thing in the morning. I don't think it needs to be chicken breast. It could be anything. It probably could even be a protein shake, but try and have a protein shake without a whole lot of processed crap and carbohydrates in it. Second thing, the Ketone IQ shot or any exogenous ketone shot, sparkling water, and going on walks. Those 4 things have absolutely helped me sort of stay strict with this diet. And I must also finish off by saying I am very rarely overly hungry. I know I've said through the last 5 minutes or so that sometimes I feel hungry and I use these hacks. I have really tried to be aware of the fact that oftentimes I'm actually not hungry. I'm just a little bit bored and I feel like a bit of a dopamine hit. Or I just previously was in a routine of having something around this time and my brain is wanting it again. I'm actually not hungry and I don't really need the food. So all these things have resulted in 8 pounds of weight coming off. It'll probably be closer to 10 or 12 come Chicago if I keep going this way, which is going to be close to 4 or 5 kilos. And let's see if it works. I mean, who knows? I might find myself struggling with this in a few weeks, but so far, honestly, it's been pretty easy. But I can say that it is a game changer to be able to do this at home and be able to cook yourself. I think it would be very hard doing this eating out all the time when you're constantly having to choose between menus and so on and so forth, because the fact that you can really avoid sort of a lot of processed carbohydrates is much easier done when you're shopping yourself. So hopefully this helps. Once again, I want to finish off and say I do not necessarily recommend this. A whole lot of people asked how I've done it. This is how I've done it, and we'll see if it works. I definitely know that there is a dark side to this. I know that you can go too far with it so that you start to see a negative effect. I recently had Ryan Hall on the podcast about 2 months ago, and he mentioned that he got to that point one day. And who knows, I might find that point, but at the end of the day, if I do, then I will at least have learned something about where that line is. But so far, I haven't found that line, so we'll see what happens. But hopefully you learn a thing or two from this. And I would love for you to comment down below if you have any questions or if there's any more comments. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of heat in there as well. So do feel free to ask questions down below. All right, guys, just a quick thanks to one of the sponsors of Sweat Elite and one of the sponsors of this video series, Kaizen that I've been working with for a little over a year now, an application that I think marathoners will find very interesting, and I want to share a little bit about how you can use Kaizen to your advantage. So this is what the application looks like, and let's take, for example, a user that has set themselves a goal of 227 in the marathon. Their current fitness is at 237. So everything in the app is geared towards achieving the goal of 227. Kaizen gives you a weekly target to achieve, represented in this donut. Hitting that each week will get you to the target time. You also get a live race prediction, like a marathon for now, with more distances coming very soon, on a daily basis. You can see how your training has progressed over the last 8 weeks, including a view of your overall training load, the distance at any given pace. It lets you plan your week, so if you're working with a coach or a more prescriptive plan, you can include your sessions in there and work the easy runs in and around it. And you can also plan for the next week as well. And also an optional function is there are also streaks which unlock different colored donuts as you progress. So do go and check out Kaizen, guys. You can find a link in the description of this video to take you straight to the download link.
All right, before I go over the training week, just pretty briefly, probably over like 5 minutes, I want to do a couple of questions and answers, answer some rapid fire questions that have come my way through comments, Instagram, DMs, Strava, comments, and so on and so forth. And some of these questions I've probably answered in previous video series, so apologies if you already heard them. But question number 1 comes from David, I'll just leave the surname blank, F. David asks, your easy runs are always at very varying paces. Sometimes you'll run closer to 6:45 per mile pace, other times close to 9-minute pace. Do you think that this really matters that much as to how fast you run on easy days? Good question. I came to the conclusion a while back that I don't think it matters really that much, and I actually think it's probably good to vary it a bit. It may be injury preventative to vary it a bit because you're sort of stressing slightly different tendons, ligaments, muscles, but yeah, I don't know. I've met really good athletes, Amanal Petros, and the guys that he trains with do most of their easy runs at 3:30 per K or 5:40 per mile, and then guys running just as fast as him in Japan are doing easy runs at over 5 minutes a kilometre. Yuki Koichi is one example. He'll be doing his easy runs at over 8-minute mile pace often. And I just don't really think it matters that much. I think just as long as you're out there running, you're not close to threshold, and it's probably a little bit more than a jog, I think that's all that matters. Number 2, from Sam S. Sam asks, you've already done quite a few runs over 20 miles. How many runs over 20 miles will you do? And do you think it's a good idea for everyone to be doing long runs this frequently? Good question. I think I'll probably end up doing 6 or 7 runs over 20 miles or 32K. There's a lot of different opinions about this. I've actually met a 212 runner whose longest run in his build up to running 212 was 32K once, 20 miles. They're the same thing almost. 32.2K is 20 miles. And I know people that feel like they need to do 4 or 5 40K runs, which is close to 25 miles, in order to be ready for the marathon. I sit probably closer to the second. I just feel more confident. I feel like my body is more ready to take on the marathon when I've done a bunch of very long runs. But I know people that have successfully run faster than I have, much faster than I have, that have done 2 or 1 run of 32K or more. So I think this is quite individual. There's definitely no wrong or right. There's probably lots of videos and blog posts and podcasts out there saying that you need to do X, Y, Z, but I say all the time that there's very few correct answers in running that apply to everyone, and this is absolutely one of them. But the answer to my build-up is I think I'll probably end up doing 6 or 7, maybe actually closer to 8. I haven't even counted them. And I just have a gut feeling that that's right for me. So there you go. Question number 3, Matt, what shoes are you currently wearing in training and what shoes will you race in? I don't like the shoe conversation. I've made that pretty clear in other videos and podcasts. I don't think it really matters that much. A lot of people will find this answer disappointing because the biggest YouTube channels right now in running are all doing shoe reviews constantly and people love it. And I don't get it. I just don't. Maybe I'm just not into the fashion that much, but I just think, people are putting out such good videos about like how to get better in training, and they're getting far less views than people doing videos about shoes. And I just think shoes won't move the needle that much for you. They really won't, whereas good training really will. To answer your question specifically, I have a lot of shoes, some of them half worn, some of them very new. I've been leaning towards the Asics Super Blast 2 for pretty much all easy running and most long runs, especially when you get when I'm not at marathon pace. And when I'm at marathon pace or faster, I've been using either the Alphafly 3 or the Vaporfly 2. But honestly, I could switch them out for almost anything and I'd probably run the same. As in, Asics Metaspeed Sky, Paris, is that what they're called? Metaspeed Sky Paris? Either way, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've got a range of the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pros. They're good too. I've probably got about 7 pairs of super shoes that if I put them all on, I'd probably run almost exactly the same over the marathon. But I will say though that the Asics Super Blast 2, I think I said this in the last video or the one before, that is a really good shoe, and I really find that very comfortable in training. I just genuinely enjoy running in them. So that's my answer, but my suggestion is don't worry about the shoes that much. Worry about the training, worry about getting into good body composition, worry about eating well, worry about sleeping well. That's the big thing, and worry about preparing yourself to train as best you possibly can and race as best you possibly can. That's the thing. The shoes should be the 10th priority, in my opinion, but more than happy for people to disagree with me on that. And if you want to make a good YouTube channel and have a lot of views, it seems to me like you have to be doing a lot of stuff with the shoes. So that's a little bit sad in my opinion, but it is what it is. All right, a quick recap of the week. I'm going to spare you all the easy runs because you can I'll put them up on the screen here. All the other days other than the workout days are just easy mileage. I don't think that's very interesting to talk about, to be honest, and you can just head over to Strava or see them up on the screen here to see what I've done more specifically. But my key workouts of the week were on Tuesday. I normally run on Wednesday, my hard workouts, but because the half marathon was on Saturday that I secured and locked in on Monday for sure, I decided to do the workout one day earlier on the Tuesday. And I did 5 by 1K and 10 500s. This was a great little workout for me. 5 by a K at threshold, which was right around 3:05 per K, just under 5-minute mile pace. That's what it felt like on that morning anyway, threshold did, with 200 jog recovery, and then 10 500s a little bit faster than that, about 10K effort, just under 3 minutes a kilometre. I do think that, especially basing on how the half marathon went, I do think I could break 30 minutes for 10K right now if I had a 5-day sort of easy taper leading in. So these were probably right around the right pace, right around 127 to 129, which is sort of like 29:45, 29:40 10K pace. Great workout. The recoveries were pretty quick. Just tried to sort of, not necessarily, I think I wrote on Strava that they were a jog. They were definitely a little bit more than a jog, but they definitely weren't a float. I wasn't running as fast as I could while recovering. It was just sort of a steady 200 meters. Great little workout for me. I felt really good, very optimistic about the race. Definitely pretty fatigued in the legs, but in the actual, aerobic capacity and lungs, I felt pretty comfortable. So, yep, next couple of days, just a lot of easy running, as you can see on the screen here. And then on Thursday, 2 days before the race, I just did 10 by 100 meter strides. I'll normally do hill sprints on, normally it's on Friday, but I moved everything back a day because of the half marathon being on the Saturday. 10 by 100 meters at about 4-minute pace, just to sort of spin the legs over. I skipped the hills just because I figured it's probably best to do them on the flat 2 days before the race. And then that leads us to Saturday morning, where I ran the half marathon about 45 minutes out from Chicago City and ended up running my 3rd fastest time, but in the circumstances that it was, in the sense of in the middle of very high volume, ran most of the race alone, and the course probably wasn't anywhere near as fast as the other courses I've run on in half marathons. But you can see a little bit of a recap of the day out at Flossmoor last Saturday. All right, I've taken almost no videos of today, so this video is a little bit disappointing. I'm sorry in advance. Solid run. 67:04 or 05. I think I said before that it'd be good to run, A goal was 65 for sure. B goal was a personal best. I'd be pretty disappointed if I was slower than, I think I said 67:30. So I was in the middle. Ran pretty much all of it after mile, I think 2.5 or 3. Ran 5K, just less than 5K on my own. And there's really nothing I could have done about that because at 5K, I think we were 15:18, and I just knew it was a bit too quick for me. And then the 2 guys in front of me, Colin and Blake, 2 guys I've been doing a bit of training with, they kicked on, and I realized that they were going to keep running that pace, and they ran really well. Colin ran 63:40 something or 63:30 something. Blake 65:15, I think. But I just knew at that point that I wasn't going to be able to hold that pace. So I pulled back a little bit, and there was just no one there, no one behind me. So I ran solo through until mile 10, so 16K. And then another guy, William, came past me really fast, and I just couldn't respond to him. To be honest, it was one of those races, which is disappointing. I don't really know how this happens, but at 10K, I honestly considered, man, should I just round it up there and just run 10K? I think it was a combination of going a little bit too fast, because at 10K we were 30:57, I think, or at least GPS, on the GPS, so probably 31:0 something. And probably every mile after that, I just had minor thoughts of dropping out. Very, very glad I didn't. I think for the most part, it was just lack of stimulus. Just like, it's a small race, no crowds, no one around me as well. Like through a lot of the race, at least half of it, it was just me on a road like that. Like just running, no one running near me and no one on the sidelines. And it's really hard mentally to push. I'm sure everyone watching this has been in a situation like that before, to push really hard in an instance like that. So yeah, my pace dropped way back from like 3:06, 3:07 per kilometer or a 5-minute mile back to like my marathon pace. Through the 11K through to 20K, I was running like my goal marathon pace. 3:14, 3:15, I think there was like a 3:18 in there, like a 5:18 mile. So that's not great, but I knew at that point that's how fast I was running. Definitely went through a lot of mental battles. I think mostly just because I was just totally on my own. Seriously considered pulling the pin at 10 miles. I was just fried at that point, like really fried, and I'm really glad I pushed through it. I think there's a lot that can be gained mentally from pushing through, for 5K, 16, 17 minutes when you're really, really in trouble. So 2 errors made, or 1 error made, one that's just worth considering. Generally felt very flat, and that shouldn't be a surprise because, last 2 weeks have been the biggest volume I've ever done. And this week will probably also be pretty close to 100 miles. So, my body's obviously trying to adapt to that at the same time. And first 5K too fast. It was 15:18, should have been 15:40, and I should have been 31:20 at 10K. I reckon if I'd done that, honestly, if I'd been 15:40 and 31:20, which is even pace, I reckon I would have run 66:30 or 20, 66:30, 66:40. But because I went out too fast and I was just, lactate was too high, heart rate was too high, all of those values, I could just feel it. The last 5K, really the last actually pretty much 8K was just an absolute grind. So anyway, not too bad, pretty good. I mean, given that I was like 18 seconds off my personal best, and when I ran my personal best in Seville, I had a big pack around me, it was better weather, there was no wind. Today was pretty breezy, not too bad. The weather was pretty good. But the course in Seville was definitely much faster than this one. This one's like, it's okay. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. If, Valencia and Berlin and Seville are a 10 out of 10, I'll give this one a 7. A few rolling hills, lots of turns. A lot of the road is a little bit shitty, like a little bit uneven underfoot. But, weather, I'd give today probably close to a 9, to be honest. The weather was pretty good. There in a second. Let's do a little vlog. Got to live with Kevin. And yeah, all in all, I think it was good. Like, I legitimately think that effort, if I put that same effort into the way that Seville played out when I ran my personal best, I think I would have run around a minute quicker. So yeah, it's all right. All right, gotta get moving, and I'll check in with you soon. I think I'll still do a long, easy, slow run tomorrow, probably 20 miles, we'll see. I'll make a call later today. But greetings from Outback Chicago, and a decent day here to run 67:04 and come forth.